I've been many things in my life: patient, forgiving, and occasionally too understanding for my own good. But on the night my daughter drove me to the hospital while my husband was ordering appetizers with another woman, something in me went very, very quiet. And quiet, for me, is where the dangerous thinking happens. But before we continue, please make sure to like, subscribe, and kindly drop a comment on the location from where you're watching. My name is Marina Blake, and here is something nobody tells you about having a 16-year-old who just got her learner's permit. When there is an actual emergency, she is considerably more useful than anyone who has been driving for 20 years because she has no habits to unlearn and nothing but pure focused terror to run on. I know this because on a Wednesday night in October, Chloe Blake drove me to the hospital at speeds I am choosing not to remember, with both hands on the wheel and the expression of someone who has decided that traffic laws are a strongly worded suggestion. I was in the passenger seat, clutching my chest, trying to breathe through what would turn out to be a cardiac event serious enough to keep me in hospital for 4 days and rearrange my understanding of my own life in ways I am still, a year later, processing. "Mom," Chloe said, not taking her eyes off the road. "Stay with me, talk to me." "I'm here," I managed. "Keep talking." "You just went through a red light." "That one was more of a dark orange. Call Dad." I tried. Voicemail. "Text him," I said. She did, one-handed at a junction. The text said, "Mom is having a heart thing, meet us at street." Augustine's. Chloe's texts have always had a directness I admire. She checked the screen. Then she went very still. "Mom." "What?" "He's not answering." "I know, No, Mom." Her voice had shifted, not frightened anymore. Something flatter, more dangerous. "He's not answering, but he's online." The car was quiet except for my breathing and the engine and the sound of a Wednesday night city moving past us. "Drive," I said. She drove. And somewhere in the back of my mind, in the part that wasn't focused on the tightness in my chest, a small cold thought arrived and made itself at home. "He's online." I am going to give you the Derek Blake situation in condensed form because I think we have all met a Derek Blake and you don't need extensive explanation. So Derek was charming in the way of men who have learned that charm is a more efficient tool than honesty. We'd been married for 14 years. He worked in property development, which meant he always had a reason to be somewhere else. A site visit, a meeting, a dinner with someone important. The excuses were, in retrospect, laughably uncreative. Chloe had started side-eyeing him approximately 2 years before I did, which either says something about the observational gifts of teenagers or something about my own willingness to not look directly at things I didn't want to see. Probably both. She had a whole taxonomy of commentary she deployed at the dinner table. When Derek canceled plans, "Shocking, truly, I'm so surprised." When Derek arrived home late, "Oh, you live here." No, I'd forgotten. When Derek said he'd been at the office, "On a Sunday, in August, right." I had told her to be respectful. She had looked at me with the patient expression of a 16-year-old who knows something her mother isn't ready to know yet. I understand now that she was protecting me, in the way that she could, by making small jokes about the thing that was true, so that when the thing became undeniable, I would have been approaching it rather than hitting it cold. She was, at 16, a significantly better strategist than her father. Chapter 3. He's not at work. They stabilized me within 2 hours, cardiac arrhythmia. Stress-related, the doctor said, with the gentle directness of someone who says this to people regularly and has learned to make it land softly. Not a full heart attack, but a warning. And the kind your body issues when it has been trying to tell you something for a long time and has finally escalated to formal correspondence. I lay in the hospital bed connected to various monitors and thought, this is the kind of night when your husband comes. Chloe was in the chair beside me, legs pulled up, phone in hand. She had called Derek twice more. He had not answered. Then he texted. She read it. Her face did a very specific thing. The thing it does when she is deciding whether to tell me something or manage me. She looked at me, looked at the phone, looked back at me. "Read it to me," I said. She read it. "In the middle of something important. Is she okay? Keep me posted." The room was quiet. "Keep me posted," I repeated. "No, yes. Like I'm a project update." Apparently. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathed through the monitor's steady beep. "Where is he?" I asked. "Mom, Chloe, where is he?" She pulled up the location app we had installed after she got her permit. The one Derek had agreed to, including himself, because transparency was something he was comfortable performing. She looked at the screen. "He's not at work," she said. "Where?" "Moretto's." I knew Moretto's. It was the kind of restaurant Derek took clients when he wanted to impress them. 3 courses, wine list the size of a short novel. "Right," I said. "Mom." "Important meeting," I said, clearly. And then my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification, the algorithm, with its magnificent indifference to personal circumstance, had decided to show me that I'd been tagged in a comment by someone I barely knew, pointing me toward a public post. I opened it. A photo, posted 40 minutes ago, tagged at Moretto's. Derek at a corner table, laughing, relaxed, jacket off, wine glass raised. And across from him, in a red dress, a woman I had never seen before, dark-haired, animated, leaning toward him with the specific body language of someone who is very comfortable with who she is leaning toward. He looked in that photo, completely happy. I lay in a hospital bed with electrodes on my chest. "So," I said. My voice came out surprisingly level. He couldn't come to the hospital, but he had time for appetizers. Chloe looked at the photo, looked at me. And the pasta course. "Why, by the looks of it," she said. I looked at my daughter. She looked at me. "I love you," I said. "I love you too, Mom," she said. "Rest. We'll deal with this later." She put my phone face down on the table and refilled my water and didn't say another word about it. But her eyes, when she looked at the door, had a quality I recognized. She was already planning. Derek arrived at the hospital at 10:47. He came in with the slightly ruffled energy of a man who has had to rearrange his evening and is managing his irritation about it. He kissed my forehead. He asked questions. He spoke to the doctor with the engaged, concerned expression of a husband who is present. He was very good at present when present was required. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" he said. "I did," I said. "Yeah, you were busy." "I was in a dinner. I had my phone on silent." "Important dinner?" "Property deal. You know how these things are." I said. Chloe, from her chair, said nothing. She was looking at her phone. But her jaw had a set to it that Derek didn't notice, because Derek had never paid close enough attention to our daughter's jaw. He stayed an hour. He held my hand in the way of someone performing holding hands. He left because he had an early meeting, and the doctors had said I was stable, and he needed sleep. "I'll be here first thing," he said. He was not there first thing. He arrived at 11 with coffee, which he handed to me with the expression of someone who feels a gesture has covered a deficit. Chloe waited until he went to find a nurse. Then she placed her phone on my bed, or opened to a folder. "I've been doing some research," she said. The folder contained screenshots, 14 of them, accumulated over the course of the previous night and morning with the methodical efficiency of a person who has decided that information is power and is taking the collection of it seriously. Sienna Hart, 31 years old, interior designer, Instagram account that was, until last night, set to public and contained, spread across the last 8 months, a series of photographs that told a story, a corner table at Moretto's that appeared 3 times, a hotel bar I recognized from a conference Derek had attended in March, a weekend trip to the coast posted with the caption, "Spontaneous adventures that corresponded precisely with a weekend Derek had spent, allegedly, at a property site in Devon. 8 months. And at minimum. The most recent post was from last night. It had been deleted this morning. But Chloe had screenshotted it before it disappeared, with the foresight of someone who understood that evidence has a short shelf life. Derek, in the red-lit warmth of Moretto's, Sienna across from him. The caption, before deletion, had said, "Some nights are just. Some nights are just," while I was in the passenger seat of my own car, being driven by my teenager, clutching my chest. 8 months, I said. At least, Chloe said. There might be more I haven't found yet. I looked at my daughter. When did you start suspecting? She looked at me with the patient expression of someone who has been waiting for this question. Mom, she said gently, I've known something was wrong for 2 years. I sat with that. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't have proof. And because, she looked at her hands, I didn't want to be the one who broke it. I kept hoping I was wrong. Were you wrong? No. No, I agreed. We sat for a moment in the particular silence of 2 people who have arrived at the same understanding from different distances. Okay, I said finally, don't say anything to him. She looked up. Not yet, I said. I need to think. I called my aunt from the hospital that afternoon. Aunt Carol is my mother's younger sister and the person I call when I need someone who will react with enough energy for both of us so that I can stay calm. She is 62 years old, recently retired from a career in HR that she describes as 30 years of watching people behave badly and learning exactly how to respond. And she has opinions on everything delivered at a volume that suggests she assumes everyone within a 20-foot radius wants to be included. She arrived at the hospital within the hour. She took one look at me. She took one look at the screenshots Chloe showed her. She sat down. She stood back up. She sat down again. He was at Moretto's, she said. Yes. While you were... She gestured at the monitors, the bed, the general medical situation. Yes, with a woman in a red dress. Apparently she has a whole aesthetic, Chloe said. Carol looked at Chloe, then at me. We are not crying, she said. I want to be very clear. We are not crying. We are planning. I know, I said. Good. She pulled her chair closer. Tell me everything, and I mean everything. Leave nothing out. I have 4 fully charged battery packs and nowhere to be. Over the next 2 hours, Aunt Carol proposed the following plans, which I am recording here for posterity. 1. Sign Derek up for every free trial subscription available, using his email, timed to auto-charge on the same day. 2. Contact Sienna Hart's Instagram to report stolen content for every post she'd ever made. 3. Hire a caricature artist to create an enormous portrait of Derek and Sienna and have it delivered to their favorite restaurant to be mounted on the wall. 4. Send Derek's mother the screenshots. She always liked you better anyway. 5. Arrange for a mariachi band to show up at Derek's next important property meeting. I declined all of these. You're no fun, Carol said. I'm strategic, I said. What's the strategy? I don't know yet, I said, but it involves a lawyer, and it involves him not knowing I know. Not yet. Carol looked at me for a long moment. How long have you been like this? She asked. Like what? Terrifyingly composed. I had a cardiac event 36 hours ago. I'm conserving energy. She pointed at me. That, right there, that's what's going to destroy him. I went home on Saturday. Derek picked me up. He carried my bag. He kept his hand on my back walking to the car. He had bought flowers, the grocery store kind, not the florist kind, and which was information I filed without comment. The drive home was quiet. You need to rest, he said. I know. I've cleared my schedule for the week. You didn't need to do that. Of course I did. You're my wife. I looked out the window at the ordinary Saturday streets. You're my wife, said with warmth, with conviction, with the absolute composure of a man who does not know that his wife spent yesterday on a hospital laptop researching family law solicitors, while his daughter annotated a folder of screenshots with timestamps. Thank you, I said. We went home. I was very sweet. Here is what playing normal looks like from the inside. You make the coffee the way you always make it. You ask the questions you would always ask. You laugh at the things that are mildly funny, and don't laugh too much and don't laugh too little, because he knows the calibration and you need to stay inside it. You watch him, not suspiciously. With the specific, focused attention of a woman collecting data. Every time his phone lights up and he angles it away, every time he excuses himself for a call, every time he looks at his watch with the expression of someone who has somewhere else to be. It had always been there. I had always half seen it. Seeing it clearly now, from behind the knowledge of what it meant, was a different experience entirely. You seem calmer, he said on the third day. The doctors said to reduce stress. I said, right. Good. Yes. He was slightly unnerved by calm Marina. So Derek was comfortable with a version of me that occasionally needed managing. Calm Marina, who asked no questions and made no demands and looked at him with complete equanimity, was apparently less comfortable. Good. Chloe, across the dinner table, watched all of this with the concentrated attention of a naturalist observing animal behavior. That night, she knocked on my door. He texted her, she said. I didn't look on purpose. He left his phone on the counter and it lit up. Her name came up as S. That's not subtle. No, I agreed. How are you actually feeling? I thought about it honestly. Sad, I said, but not as sad as I expected, which is its own kind of sad. She sat on the edge of my bed. What does that mean? It means I think I've been grieving this for longer than I knew. She was quiet for a moment. Mom, she said, for what it's worth, I think you've been carrying this house for a long time, and I think when it's over, you're going to feel a lot lighter than you expect. I looked at my 16-year-old daughter. When did you get wise? I said. I've always been wise, she said. You've been busy. The 2 weeks after I came home from the hospital were the most productive of my adult life. I found a solicitor on the Tuesday. Her name was Frances, late 50s, no nonsense, the kind of professional who listens to the full situation with absolute stillness and then says, right, here's what we're going to do. I laid everything out, the screenshots, the timeline. With a financial picture, which I had begun examining with the help of Frances's recommendation of an independent financial analyst, and which was revealing itself to be considerably more interesting than I had anticipated. Derek had been doing some creative accounting around our joint assets, not illegal exactly, but the kind of financial positioning that a man does when he is planning an exit and wants the exit to favor him. He had been planning, which meant I needed to plan better. Frances was very pleased with the folder Chloe had assembled. She used the word thorough twice, which from Frances I understood to be the equivalent of a standing ovation. Does he know you know? She asked. No. Does anyone outside your immediate circle know? My aunt, my daughter, you. Keep it that way for now. She folded her hands. Give me 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Aunt Carol had channeled her considerable energy away from the mariachi band idea and into what she called legitimate support operations. This meant turning up at my house every other day with food under the cover story of helping Marina recover, which Derek accepted because it kept him from having to do it. Distracting Derek at critical moments. She had a gift for engaging him in conversations he couldn't easily exit, while I photographed documents in his study, and keeping Chloe company on the nights Derek was working late so that Chloe wasn't alone in the house with a man she was increasingly unable to look at without her face doing alarming things. Chloe, for her part, had developed a system. She kept her phone on the kitchen counter on the occasions Derek made calls in the living room, angled casually, recording. She documented, in a notes app, every inconsistency, the timeline gaps, the excuses that didn't match the location data, the Sienna mentions. She showed me everything. And once, And I want to record this because it was one of the funniest and most satisfying moments of the entire operation. Derek sat down at the kitchen table while Chloe was doing homework and said, with the weariness of a man who considers domestic conversation a toll he must occasionally pay, "How's school?" Chloe looked up from her textbook. "Fine," she said. "We're studying ethics." "Oh? It's really interesting. The main question we're looking at is..." She made a show of checking her notes. "At what point does self-interest become incompatible with moral responsibility to others?" Derek looked at her. "Fascinating," she said, and looked back at her textbook. "I was in the kitchen. I turned to face the sink so he wouldn't see my face. On the Thursday of week 2, I did something I had told myself I wouldn't do. I looked at Sienna Hart's Instagram. She had made it private after the night of the deleted post. Someone had clearly told her to, or she'd had the instinct herself. But there were still the public-facing scraps, the grid, the highlights, the particular curated vision of a life that someone has decided is worth displaying. She was, objectively, attractive. She had a way of photographing herself that suggested complete comfort with how she looked, which I had once found alienating in other people and now mostly just found boring. What I was actually looking for, and found, eventually, in the highlighted stories she hadn't thought to delete, was the evidence of what she knew. There is a difference between a woman who doesn't know and a woman who does. A woman who doesn't know is a complicating factor, but not a co-conspirator. A woman who does is something else. She knew. A comment she'd replied to on a post from 4 months ago from a friend who'd asked, "When are you going to find yourself a man, Lowell?" To which Sienna had replied with a string of laughing emojis and, "Girl, if you only knew." A photo from the Devon weekend, posted publicly before the account went private. Caption, "Third wheel to nobody." And, the one that settled it, a screenshot Chloe found on a Reddit relationship forum, posted anonymously but with enough specific details that Chloe had, with the forensic instinct of a person raised on true crime podcasts, traced it back through the writing style and the details to an account that linked eventually to Sienna. The post was from 6 months ago. It asked, in the breezy tone of someone who has decided their situation is exciting rather than problematic, "Anyone else dating someone married? His wife sounds like such a drag. He says she never lets him breathe." The responses were largely not sympathetic. Sienna had not engaged with those ones. I read it twice. "His wife sounds like such a drag." I thought about 14 years. I thought about the Tuesday night and the hospital and the electrodes and the keep me posted text. And I thought about breathing. I thought, I let him breathe fine. He just preferred a different air. And then I took a screenshot, added it to the folder, and texted Francis. "I think we're ready. Here is how it happened. Derek told me on a Friday that he had a client dinner on Tuesday evening. Important one. He might be late. Of course, I said, don't rush." He looked at me with the slightly unnerved expression that calm Marina had been producing in him for 2 weeks. "You sure you'll be okay?" "I'll be fine," I said. "Chloe's here." "Right." He kissed my cheek. "I'll try not to be too late." He would not be at a client dinner. I knew this because Chloe had, entirely of her own initiative, in a move I want to stress I did not explicitly sanction and am also completely grateful for, checked Sienna's location sharing, on which she had deduced through a series of steps I will not fully detail here, but which involved a Finsta account and a mutually following acquaintance and a patience for digital investigation that I find both impressive and slightly alarming. Sienna had made a reservation at Ardennes, a restaurant I knew because it was the kind of place that required booking 3 weeks in advance, and because it was, according to its own website, an intimate dining experience, which is restaurant language for tables close enough that other people's conversations become yours. I called Carol. "Tuesday," I said. "I need you, and I need you to wear something impressive." "Oh," said Carol in the voice she uses when something wonderful is about to happen. "Tell me everything." On Tuesday afternoon, Frances messaged to confirm the paperwork was ready. And everything we had built over 2 weeks, organized and documented and filed, was in a folder in my bag. I wore the blue dress, the one I'd bought myself for a birthday 2 years ago and never found an occasion for. It was, I had decided, an occasion. Chloe straightened my collar at the door. "You look like someone who's about to win something," she said. "I am," I said. "Stay home. I'll call you." "I want a live update." "You'll get a full debrief." "I want." "Chloe." "Go," she said and hugged me. "Destroy him." "That's a strong word." "Mom." "Okay," I said. "A little bit." Carol and I arrived at our den at 7:45. Derek and Sienna were already there. Corner table, of course always the corner table, already on their main course, were in the warm, conspiratorial lean of two people who believe themselves to be very private in a public place. The maitre d' showed us to our table, which was adjacent to theirs. Derek saw me when I sat down. The sequence of expressions that moved across his face was, and I say this with complete sincerity, one of the most entertaining things I have ever witnessed. Surprise, confusion, a rapid attempt at normalizing confusion, a flicker of something that was almost guilt, which surprised me because I hadn't been certain he had the architecture for it. Then, Marina. "Derek," I said pleasantly. "What a coincidence." He was looking at Carol. "Carol," Carol said with the warmth of someone who is enjoying herself enormously. "I'm her aunt, you know me. But I imagine you're looking at me because you're trying to figure out how to play the next 30 seconds. So take your time." Sienna had gone very still. She was looking at me with the expression of a woman who has thought about this moment. Probably, who has thought about it frequently, constructed versions of it, decided how she would behave. She was wearing a black dress. She was, in person, quite beautiful. She also looked, in this specific moment, like someone who had just realized that the version she'd constructed bore no resemblance to what was actually happening. "Marina," Derek said. "This is..." "Sienna," I said. "Yes, I know." I smiled at her. "Hello?" She opened her mouth. "Don't," I said, not unkindly. "I don't have anything to say to you specifically. This isn't about you specifically." I looked at Derek. This is about him." I reached into my bag. I placed the folder on the table. Not their table. My table, beside me, but within Derek's sightline. "I've been doing some reading," I said. "While I was recovering, I had a lot of time." I opened it. The Moretto's receipts that came through our joint card in March. The hotel booking in April, same card, for a room I was not in. The Devon weekend. I turned a page. "Frances, my solicitor, has been very thorough. She says thorough is the best word for what we've built." Derek's jaw had tightened. "Marina, this is not..." "I'm not finished," I said pleasantly. Carol, beside me, poured herself water with the unhurried manner of someone watching a very good film. "The financial records are the interesting part," I said. "The asset positioning you've been doing. Frances says it's not illegal, but it is interesting in the context of everything else. Interesting in the way that a judge will find interesting when we get there." Sienna pushed her chair back slightly. It scraped the floor. Several nearby diners glanced over. And then, I took out the last page, the Reddit screenshot, slid it across to the adjacent table, within Derek's reach. "This is just personal, for context." He looked at it. He didn't touch it. "His wife sounds like such a drag," I said, quoting it back. "I've been thinking about that a lot. In 14 years, I kept that house. I raised that daughter. I supported every business decision and every late night and every important dinner." I closed the folder. "And apparently I was doing it wrong, because the whole time you were struggling to breathe." The table was very quiet. The adjacent tables, somewhat less so. I picked up the menu. "I already ordered, by the way," I said. For our table. Carol, the lamb here is supposed to be excellent." "I've heard that," Carol said, opening her own menu with complete composure. "Marina." Derek's voice was low, taut. "Can we please?" "The divorce papers are in the folder," I said without looking up. "Frances has the full filing ready. You'll hear from her this week." I found the lamb. "Take your time with dinner. Don't rush on our account." I set down the menu. I looked at Derek one final time. Not with anger. I had expected anger and found, sitting there in the blue dress on the Tuesday evening, that what I actually felt was something quieter. Something that had been building since the hospital, since the Keep Me Posted text, since the photo in the red-lit warmth of Moretto's, and something that had sharpened and clarified over 2 weeks of planning and was now simply done. "While I was fighting for my life," I said, "you were living yours." I picked up my water glass. "Keep it. You can have that life without me." I took a sip. Sienna stood up and left the restaurant without speaking. Her heels were loud on the floor and then silent. Derek sat at his corner table with the folder and the receipt and the Reddit screenshot and the ruins of a plan he had not known he was already inside. Carol and I ordered the lamb. It was excellent. The divorce took 8 months, not because it was contested. Derek had enough legal counsel to understand that contesting it would go worse for him than not, but because these things take the time they take, and Frances was thorough, and thorough takes time. And I went back to work in January, not the work I'd been doing before. Smaller, more careful, the version of a career you build when you've decided to build it for yourself, rather than around someone else's schedule. I sold the house. My choice. Not because I needed the money. The settlement was more than fair. Frances had made certain of that. But because I wanted a different starting point. A house that was not full of the furniture of a life I was no longer living. The new place was smaller, brighter. Had a garden I immediately filled with things I hadn't known I wanted to grow. Aunt Carol came every Saturday. She had mostly abandoned the mariachi band idea, but occasionally brought it up for nostalgic purposes. And Chloe, who had driven me to the hospital at speeds I am choosing not to remember, who had assembled the folder, who had delivered the ethics, homework speech at the kitchen table with the composure of a professional, who had straightened my collar at the door and said destroy him and meant it as love. She was, as it turned out, completely fine. Better than fine. She expanded into the new house the way people expand when pressure is removed, like something that had been held down and was now simply allowed to be its actual size. She joined a debate team. She got a weekend job she liked. She spent long evenings in the garden with me, talking about things we had not had space to talk about before. One evening, a few months after the move, she looked up from her book and said, "So, does this mean I get to hate him officially now?" I considered this. "You can have complicated feelings about him," I said. "He's still your father." She made a face. "But," I said, "you are also completely entitled to be furious with him for a very long time." "How long?" "However long it takes." She nodded, thought about it. "What if it takes forever?" "Then forever," I said. "That's up to you." She went back to her book. Then, from behind it, "For what it's worth, I don't think the ethics homework thing was my best work. It was excellent. I could have been more subtle." "You didn't need to be subtle." She lowered the book, looked at me. "You've earned it," I said. She smiled, the full one, the one that had been slightly rationed for 2 years and was now back in full circulation. "Yeah," she said, "I have. Here is what a cardiac event, an unfaithful husband, and 8 months of rebuilding will teach you, if you let them. The body knows things before the mind agrees to. And I had been running on a stress I had normalized so completely that it had become invisible. The low-frequency hum of a marriage that was not what I had believed it was. The constant low-level work of holding together something that had already decided, on one side, to come apart. My heart had been trying to tell me for longer than I admitted. I'm listening better now. Derek and Sienna are, as far as I know, still together. I have chosen to find this information useful rather than upsetting. It means he has somewhere to direct his energy that isn't in my direction. Carol has started a podcast about HR disasters that is more popular than any of us expected. Frances took on 3 referrals from me in the year following the divorce. She sent me a very professional thank you note. And I, in the garden, in the smaller, brighter house, in the Tuesday mornings that belong entirely to me, I'm doing what I should have been doing for years, taking up exactly as much space as I want, breathing without asking permission, living a life that is unambiguously going somewhere. I used to think that the worst night of my life was the one where my daughter drove me to the hospital and my husband sent a text that said, "Keep me posted." I've changed my mind. That night was the beginning of the clearest thinking I'd done in years, of a folder assembled by a 16-year-old who loved me enough to tell me the truth by building a case, of a Tuesday evening in a blue dress at a restaurant that served excellent lamb, of everything that came after. They say the heart knows what it needs. Mine knew before I did. When I finally listened, really listened, it turned out the answer was simple. Less of that. More of this. While I was fighting for my life, he was living his. So I stopped fighting for the marriage and started fighting for myself. Best decision I ever made. If you like this story, please support us by subscribing and liking, and kindly drop a comment on the location from where you're watching. Thank you.